For the next 3 weeks, we are going to achieve the impossible. We are going to name the best coaster for every country. And when I mean every country, I mean every single one of them. All 195 to be exact, but like only 120 of them or so actually have roller coasters. Anyways, we are going to be going by continent, by alphabetical order. It should work pretty well. So in today's video, we are going to be covering North America, South America, and Africa. We have a lot of coasters to get into, so let's just dive right in. The first country we are going to talk about is Canada. This country actually has a lot of good options. I mean, good compared to some of the other countries on this list. You have multiple B&M Hypers, but unfortunately you don't have any RMCs. The winner of the best coaster in Canada is Leviathan. This is one of the 3 B&M biggest in the world, so it definitely deserves its recognition in this category. Next up is Costa Rica. This country is home to one park called Parque Diversiones. Now our options here are a Vekoma Boomerang called Boomerang, or a Vekoma Whirlwind called Bucara. Now normally I would go with a custom layout any day of the week over a Boomerang, however Bucara looks to have some of the most mid layout in the history of mid layouts. I can guarantee a Boomerang pulls good forces, so that's why Boomerang wins the best coaster in Costa Rica. Cuba is up next. There are significantly less options here. The best coaster here is called Montaña Rusa, which is just roller coaster in Spanish, and it's a Pinfari Zyklon, and one without a loop at that. Not the most crazy thing in the world. The Dominican Republic is next up, and there is one extreme coaster here, and theoretically it's supposed to open this year. I talked about this coaster in another one of my videos before. There's no videos of it, but I'll put a picture of what it looks like from RCDB. It literally looks like the jankiest coaster I have ever seen in my entire life. It should be pretty interesting. Nevertheless, it has a vertical loop, so it wins the Dominican Republic. That's a pretty low bar right there. Next up is El Salvador. I'll make this one quick. This country has a singular coaster that is completely unknown. It is tagged with steel and family. There are no manufacturer listed or a single picture of it on RCDB. There is, however, Google Maps coverage, so I'll show you a picture of it now. Really not that special, right? Next up is Guatemala, and this country has a very clear winner. There's one extreme coaster here, and it's actually amazing. It's an Intamin 8 inversion coaster called Avalancha. It looks to have a good sequence of elements and be a solid ride anywhere in the world, thus making it stand out in Guatemala. Haiti was supposed to be next, but it really depends on how you look at things. Technically, Royal Caribbean operates their cruises from Haiti, so you could say it's the Spike Coaster, but that's stretching the line right there. Honduras, on the other hand, actually has a real roller coaster. I was going to say that there's a good selection of coasters here, but all 5 coasters in this country are wacky worms. I would also just pick the one with my favorite name, but all of them are listed as Guzanito, so it really sucks to suck there. Next up is Jamaica, and there's a pretty quirky option. It's called Fly de Ragamuffin. I'm sure it means something in another language, but it's the only coaster in this country, so therefore the best. It is an inverted mountain coaster, so it definitely is worth checking out in general. Next up is Mexico, and it really comes down to 2 coasters, Medusa and Superman. I am picking Superman El Ultimo Escape because it is popular to hate on RMC, and Medusa is one of the weaker RMCs, and also everyone who is anyone says Superman is better. Nicaragua is up next and is home to a singular powered coaster. We had no idea what it actually looks like, so here is some stock footage of a good powered coaster. Continuing this weird chain, Panama is home to a single coaster, and it's a powered coaster. Enjoy some more stock footage. Okay, now we got to the big boy that everyone was waiting for, the United States of America. There is a million thousand options that we can put here. I mean, every RMC is a good contender. You have the world's best hypercoaster, Orion. You have Fury 35, you have velocicoaster. You can just go on and on and on. For the sake of my coaster preferences, I am choosing velocicoaster. It also is like the only coaster out of the ones that I named that I have ridden. velocicoaster is a full package with theming and a great coaster. I don't think you can complain about it, and it's a very well-rounded pick. And that rounds off North America. We spend way too much time talking about this continent and need to start hauling through the rest of the video, so on to beautiful South America. Argentina is next. This country actually has 2 good options. This park is called Parque de la Costa, and guess what? It's home to none other than a Vekoma Boomerang and a Vekoma SLC. This can go any way. I personally am going to pick the SLC because of a more unique layout, but it's really down to personal preference. Next up is Bolivia, and the only thing here that is remotely noteworthy is an unknown Zero Tivoli, so on to Brazil. Brazil has a ton of options. There's SLCs, boomerangs, inverted boomerangs, a 8 inversion Intamin coaster, a shuttle loop Gerstlauer, but really just to be quirky, I am going to pick Wantism. This is an RCCA wood coaster. It doesn't look to be amazing, but I'm tired of picking old Vekomas, and this is like a pretty cool coaster. Definitely rough though. Next up is Chile, and we are going back to old Vekomas. Chile's best coaster is Raptor, which is none other than a SLC. I mean, I could have picked a Boomerang, but I think SLCs are better. Take that from someone who hasn't been on either. I could have, but long story short, I did not. On to Colombia, and we finally have something quirky. We have Crater at Parque de Lel Cafe. This is a Gerstlauer Eurofighter and is a clone of Tantrum at Darien Lake. Pretty solid coaster, and it may just be the best in South America. Next up is Ecuador. This country has a single extreme coaster. It's called Krakatoa, and it's a Pinfari Cyclone with a loop. Not the most amazing thing ever, but still unique enough to win the best spot in this country. Next up is Paraguay. Paraguay has one coaster and is a wacky worm from a janky Chinese manufacturer. Probably the worst coaster on this entire list. Peru is up next, and despite them having a whole bunch of coasters, almost every single one of them are wacky worms, so the best coaster here is a Zamperla spinning mouse called Koi Loco. Continuing with South America, we have Trinidad and Tobago. I had no idea where this country is, but it has one coaster and it's an SBF Visa. Not too exciting. Uruguay is up next, and continuing the streak of subpar coasters. This country has a single coaster and it's a janky wacky worm. Venezuela is up next, and there is a bunch of coasters, or it at least looks like a bunch of coasters until you find out that they are all wacky worms. Nevertheless, the best coaster in this country is a Vekoma MK at Diverland. It's called Montaña Rusa, and it's a double loop corkscrew model. I just want to take a second to say that the chain lift sounds so cool. Just take a listen. Isn't it really cool? Anyways, that is South America in a nutshell. It's a bunch of old Vekomas with the Gerstlauer thrown in. It's not too exciting, but I think it gets worse, trust me. We are going to end off the video with Africa. I'm going to rapid fire off all the terrible coasters, because let's face it, we don't want to waste time talking about wacky worms when we could be talking about actually good roller coasters, so let's fly through this content. Algeria is up first. The best coaster here is a galaxy called Higher Mountain. There's multiple of them, so just pick whichever one you want, it doesn't really matter. Angola is up next, and there's actually an extreme coaster here. It's a Beijing Shibalai Amusement Equipment single loop double spiral coaster. That is a hell of a twin twister. Anyways, it's a janky rip-off looper. You can't go wrong with this, right? Botswana has a singular coaster, and normally a singular coaster is a bad thing. But you know what? It's not a bad coaster at all. It's a Schwarzkopf looping star. And guess what it's called? Gwazi. No, not Iron Gwazi, but hey, still a really cool coaster and a good one for Africa. Côte del Louvre is up next. I definitely butchered that name in 200 different ways. This country has a power coaster, and that's it. Egypt is up next, and we know there are some things here. Actually, our options are just a Vekoma Boomerang and a Vekoma SLC, and we are going to follow the trend of this video. Roller coaster at Dream Park is the best coaster in Egypt, and I think ElToroRyan can probably confirm that. Ethiopia has one coaster. It's called Train. It's a powered coaster. Kenya's best coaster is called Space Car. It looks interesting to say the least. Libya has 3 unknown coasters. I think I'm going to go with the powered one. Madagascar has a Chinese wacky worm. Very interesting. Malawi has an unknown wacky worm. Now Morocco actually has something. There's an interesting coaster opening this year with 3 inversions, but we know nothing about it at all. There is, however, a Gerstlauer Eurofighter. This is a clone of Untamed at Canopie Lake Park, actually a good coaster. Nigeria has 2 jungle mouses, take and choose which one is best. Rwanda has a Chinese wacky worm with an unknown name. Senegal has a wacky worm. Somalia has some sort of kiddie coaster with spinning cars. And now we are on to South Africa. Finally, we have some good coasters to talk about. Gold Reef City is the main park in South Africa, and it is home to 3 solid candidates. I'm going to have to go with Anaconda. This is an extremely unique Gina Bola invert that, from what I have heard, rides like a B&M invert. This coaster also interacts with its terrain insanely well, so I think it's well deserving of this spot. Sudan has a janky fair coaster. This model is called a Might Mouse if you are curious. Tanzania actually has a really well put together rip-off Zamperla mouse. I have no idea why you would need to build a Jinma Ride Zamperla spinning mouse, but hey, it might be cheaper. Togo, and not the roller coaster manufacturer, has an unknown wacky worm. Tunisia has not one, but 2 of these traveling coasters that pull these nasty rolls. It actually looks super cool, and it's by Interpark. Might be worth checking out one day. Uganda has a wacky worm, and last but not least, Zambia has none other than an unknown family coaster. It's probably a wacky one or something. So we just covered all of North America, South America, and Africa in one video. That was a ton of coasters, so sorry if the information was quick. In next week's video, we are tackling all of Europe plus Australia. I really hope to see you there. That is all for today's video, guys. As always, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.